Hey everyone, it's been about 6 or 7 months since I published part 1 and the feedback has been pretty awesome. In the first video, I talk about how I use Traktor 3 with the pattern player, one Ellen and Heath K2 controller, and a Native Instruments F1 for the remix decks. You can stop this video now and watch that, or you can just wait until the end, it doesn't really matter. If you're using Traktor 4, you now have the pattern player included, which is something some Traktor 3 users like myself had to pay a subscription for, which I've been doing since it came out. Thankfully, they ditched the subscription model because honestly, it's one of the worst capitalist trends to come out in the past few years. I've made some updates to my setup. As you can see here, I have a second K2 controller, and they link via Ethernet, which is pretty cool because it saves you a USB slot. Some Ellen and Heath mixers actually have an Ethernet slot called the X-Link, and that's even one less USB slot. And now I've got a dedicated computer for DJing. I chose a Mac Mini M2, and I've got a high-def 14-inch monitor that fits right behind the mixer. I had to buy a really cheap keyboard and mouse as well. I only use that for the initial setup, and after that I don't need to touch them when I'm playing. So the pros for this are definitely affordability. The Mac Mini plus the accessories came in around $650 Canadian. A laptop starts around $2,000, and since I wanted a dedicated DJing computer, it doesn't make much sense for me to have a pricey laptop since I already have one for work. And it doesn't take much to run Traktor. I can report that I've had zero issues running this with only 8 gigs of RAM, and I host some of the tracks on an external hard drive. The Apple Silicon chips really do a good job of taking the pressure off the amount of RAM used. It's also easier to focus. The external monitor right above the mixer like this is so much better than having a laptop off to the side. It's easier to monitor everything right in front of you. As well, it looks like I'm more engaged with the crowd if I'm looking straight ahead versus off to the side or wherever I fit my laptop. And sometimes there's not even room for your laptop, so you're looking way off to the side. The main con regarding this setup would really only be the effort that comes when setting things up. It's a bit more complicated than showing up to a gig with a USB stick, plugging it in and DJing. But for me, it's worth it. If you watch my first video, you can see how I use the pattern player and the remix decks on channel 4, and I chain the 4th effect to that slot in that channel, which means I have a dedicated effects channel for patterns and loops. Previously, for all my effects channels, I had to pick 3 grouped effects for that slot and stick with them for every set. So with the K2 controllers, nothing has really changed for my first K2 controller. I still use it for basic effects like start, stop, load, loop, effects, and the pattern player. I've got my pattern player right here, and I've got my effects right here. So if I wanted to play a pattern, my 909 for example, I would just start playing it like this. And then I would add a delay. So there are certain effects that I really like to use. But what if I wanted more effects at my disposal? What if I wanted to have a single effect? So the difference between a single and a group effect is, as you can see right here, I've got a dry wet, and then I've got a tape delay right here, filter, and a normal delay right here. I've set it on the second controller so I can actually browse through different effects that I've chosen. So in particular right here, if I switch here, I've got an ice verb, I've got a digital lo-fi, I've got an auto bounce. Right now I've got a tape delay. Now if I want to go back to my delay that I really liked to use before, all I really have to do is push a button here, and it's back. Go here, and I've got my tape delay. Go here, so I turn on, and I've got it back. So for me, I've found that it's a really good way to keep my effects that I always use right here, and then as soon as I touch something over here, it'll go to the single effect, and I can rotate through the single effect and get different parameters. And single's really cool because it gives you more parameters for the effect that you'd like, whereas grouped, it only gives you a dry wet per group channel and then a dry wet for the slider that controls the entire group. Grouped is really cool because you can combine different effects together. Like I've got a reverb right going right here. And then single, as I said right here, you've got, for example, on the reverb, right here, you've got high pass reverb, low pass reverb, and the size, so you can get some really cool stuff going right there. So the sky's really the limit there when it comes to effects for single and grouped. Next up, what I've programmed on here, and I'm going to offer this to you guys as a TSI, is the cue points. This was a real pain in the butt to code because I had to basically get the loops and the cue points to be different and getting their colors to line up differently. As you can see right here in this one, I've got a cue point and I've got two loops, and if I hold the shift button, I've got a loop point, and I can add my own by just pushing right here, and you can see I've just added a cue point right here, and I can add another cue point right there. So by holding shift, I can turn flux mode on, and that guarantees if I enter a loop, it will loop, but as soon as I let go of the loop, it'll continue exactly where I'm going. So for example, if I play the track right here, you can see that if I activate a loop, it'll just go to the loop and it'll jump right back to where I was. And if I just push the button normally, it'll activate reverse flux, which I think is a great way to add a little bit of flavor before a breakdown or when you're mixing out of a track. Check it. And that's a lot of fun, and you don't lose your place when you do that, even if you don't let go at the proper time. It's always quantized, so you can have a lot of fun with that and not have to worry about losing your spot. Another thing I use the second K2 for is an external mixer. When I don't feel like getting up and plugging in to the Pioneer and I just want to sit down at my desk, or I'm in a hotel room and I just want to do some mixes and practice some tracks, I've mapped a configuration to the second K2 to turn into an external mixer. So all I have to do, just go into Preferences, Controller Manager, see my effect macros, disable them by going in port and out port to none. Then I will find my K2 mixer controls and bring them into K2 for in and out. And now you've got a mixer enabled. Everything here will work fine, and I can use it as a mixer. Thanks for watching, everyone. I'm going to do some more videos that are more in depth for control mapping, remix decks usage, and anything else I can think of. I also have a ton of techno DJ mixes on my channel, all from the top down, which give you access to seeing exactly how I DJ right in the mix. So check those out if you have time as well. Thanks again. Peace.